Have you ever struggled to find the motivation to create? Do you feel like ideas just aren't coming to you? Well, chances are you probably looked at this problem and said, yeah, I've got art block or writer's block or creative block. Well, I want to change your perspective on that. Greetings, people of the internet. I'm Scott with Serkworks Art Labs. Welcome, mad creators, to the underground laboratory where we create robots, aliens, zombies, and other imminent threats to humanity. We're going to be doing something like that today as I do a robot blueprint drawing. While I do that, I want to talk a little bit about what many people refer to as art block or creative block or writer's block. And these are terms I'm not really fond of, terms that I don't like to use, and if you're using them, I'd like to change your way of thinking on these, give you a little different perspective on that. Now, before you go and immediately hit the dislike button, when I say the myths surrounding art block or creative block or all these things, I'm not saying these things don't exist. As creative people, we often feel unmotivated or uninspired, or we lack that will to create, or maybe we just feel burnt out. And I'm not saying that these ways of being aren't real or they aren't a problem, but I think by calling it art block, we're setting ourselves up for failure. So, like I said, I'm going to work on one of these blueprint drawings. While I do that, I want to talk a little bit about art block, give you a new perspective on it, and I think this is really going to help you out if this is something that you're struggling with. So, let's get to work. If you are a creative person, and it doesn't matter if you're an artist or a writer or a designer, whether you're a professional or a hobbyist or just somebody aspiring to create really cool stuff, we all deal with lack of motivation, fatigue, apathy, that feeling that we just aren't good enough, so why bother? It's a constant thing and it shows up all the time. For some people it shows up more than others, and it is a real problem, and we exacerbate that problem by labeling it as art block. Recently, I've been immersing myself heavily in leadership training and working with life coaches to try and improve my situation and my outlook on life and my productivity and all these areas, things that are working for me, things that aren't working for me, and program myself, because there's a lot of disbeliefs that we learn growing up that are instilled with us, and it's hard to break away from that. And a lot of those are the words we use, and that's one of the things that I'm learning is just how powerful the words we use are, and how when we label something a certain way, it can really affect us, even on a subconscious level. One of the things that this training has taught me that's been a game changer, and it's a simple thing, and if you work at it, it can change your whole life and perspective, and that is to stop saying, I have to, or I need to. You know, I have to do this, I need to do that. But instead, say, I get to do this. And it doesn't matter what it is, if it's doing your taxes or doing chores or errands or whatever. But if you change that, if you flip that around, instead of something that I have to do, it's something I get to do. I get to do this because I get to do my taxes. That way, I get to cross another thing off my list before I get to do something that I probably want to do a little more. But when you look at things like a chore instead of a choice, that's what I'm talking about. It's the way the words we use, it just has an impact on what we do. So I have been really diligent on the way I approach tasks and not look at it as things that I have to do or I need to do, but things that I get to do. And you know, I catch myself all the time and I'll say, oh, I need to do this, and then I'll quickly go, no, I get to do that. And just that one little thing has just been, like I said, it's been a game changer for me. And those words we use, art block or creative block, writer's block, these are some of those phrases that they're just horrible, and they really don't do us any good. When you think of art block, what do you think of? You think of this wall, this barrier that you just can't get through. You walk up to this thing, or you're slammed into it, or whatever the case is when you approach this block, this wall. I mean, how you get through it. You can maybe climb over it depending on how big it is, but I mean, it's just this massive thing in front of us. We can't see through the other side. We don't know how to get through it. Just this block, this thing that just stops us cold. And you know, what are our options here? Do we dismantle it? Do we get a sledgehammer and break through it? I mean, art block, creative block, writer's block, this terminology is just, it's devastating to us because it's this, like I said, it's just this barrier that is like immovable. So I don't really like to look at this in terms of art block. Instead, I think about it as art fog. Because what is a fog? What happens when you get into a fog, when you're going through a fog? It's misty, it's unclear, it's hard to see through, but you can go through it. It's not this thing that's just gonna stop you. It's something that when you approach it, you're like, okay, this is hard to see, it's very unclear. What do I do? Well, what you do is you proceed with caution. You go slowly. You're not just gonna rush into it. You're gonna take your time, you're gonna figure it out. You're just going to be cognizant of what's around you, and it's something that you can't immediately see through. You're not gonna be able to see through the other side, but you keep moving forward cautiously, little by little, and that fog will dissipate, or you'll get further and further through, and you'll start to see where you're headed. And relabeling this from an art block to an art fog lets us know that this isn't something that's going to stop us. This is just something we need to push through, and that we can push through it, and it's not going to leave us dead in our tracks. We just have to figure out how to navigate that, and that's what it's all about. Is these things are going to come into our lives. These things are going to affect every one of us at some point. A lot of people deal with this on a daily basis, and if you ever wonder why, like professional artists, when they go into, say if they work at a studio, they go into a studio and they can get work done. They have to complete their tasks. It's not like they can, ring up their boss on the phone and say, sorry boss, I can't come in today. My art block is flaring up. It's really bad today, so I'm gonna have to call in art block. That's just not going to fly when you're working for an employer, a business, or if you're working for clients. You can't do that with clients. You can't say, yeah, sorry I didn't get to that, I just wasn't feeling it, or whatever. And it's not that people working professionally as creatives don't have these thoughts, don't have this, these things hanging over us like, oh, I'm just not motivated today, or whatever. We all have that, but it's that ability to push through it. It's changing the mindset. It's knowing that not everything is going to be perfect, and you just get to it. You start working through it. Just like if you're moving through that fog and things become more clear, the more you whether you're sketching or doodling or whatever the case is, or brainstorming, those ideas start to take shape and they materialize. There's this common misconception that ideas should come to us fully formed, that there's not a struggle to it. And this comes a lot from, movies and media. If you've ever seen Back to the Future, you remember the part where Doc Brown talks about how he hit his head, and when he woke up, he came up with the idea for the flux capacitor. It was fully formed, fully realized. He's got the sketch, and he just doodles the sketch and everything. And that rarely happens. On some occasions it could, but that's usually not the norm. And I think it's that perception that a lot of people are, because of media and TV or whatever, we have this idea that art, it's just something that it's this talent that you have, or it's not something that you have to work at, or something that you have to push through. But that's not the case. I've been a working creative professional for many years. I'm not going to go into how many, but let's just say many years. And the burnout that we feel, the lack of motivation, the I'm not good enough, these are all things that I'm not immune to. They come up daily with me, and I have just learned to recognize these and not let it hold me back. And in some ways, just having been there before, knowing how I've got through it before, that will help me kind of push through this fog. But it is a fog, and it is something that I'm not gonna let it hold me back. I know that it's not easy. I know that this is a process. I know that there's trial and error involved. I know that I'm going to have to do some sketches and flesh some things out and brainstorm a little bit. It's not just gonna come to me just naturally, and it's something that I've just gotta work at. And the more I work at it, the better I get. And having been down that road, I know how to proceed. And there's always things that come into life, and it's just like they derail you and things like that. But being aware of that and recentering yourself and just focusing on the task at hand, what needs to be done, and knowing that it may not come easy, but that you can push through that. And you can't push through a wall. It's something, or a block. It's just something that it's an obstacle in your path that it's very difficult to get around. But your goal is on the other side of that block. So that's a problem. That's why I tend to look at this as a creative fog, something that I'm able to get through, that I'm able to push through. And make no mistake, if you've ever been in a fog, like a heavy fog, like if you've been driving down a road and there's this fog that just comes out of nowhere and you're like, oh, I really can't see. Now, you can pull off to the side of the road. There's all kinds of different advice. We're not talking about an actual fog, but what I tend to do is I tend to just very slowly move forward, proceed with caution, make sure that I'm aware of my surroundings, make sure of what I need to do to get through this. And it can be scary, and fear is natural, and it's okay to be afraid. What some people call a block, it's rarely about laziness. I know a lot of people just label this as, oh, this person's lazy. They're, and I may have done this before because I'm a little bit of a workaholic. And as long as the person's not, sometimes people will say, yeah, I've got art block and I just can't get anything done. And then you hear that most of what they're doing is sitting around watching TV and everything. That maybe is more of a priorities thing. But for most people, it's not laziness. It's not that you just don't want to do it. It's you do want to do it. You want to create this stuff. You want to realize your artistic dreams and put cool stuff out into the world and create and be prolific. So it's not about laziness. It's more about fear. Fear that you're not good enough, that your voice doesn't matter, that people aren't going to care about what you have to put out in the world. And we may not even recognize these as fear when we're going through them. We may think, oh, I'm just lazy. And it could even be a fear that what you produce is going to be successful. And then what do? Then you've got to make a choice. Maybe, oh, do I quit my day job, or what do I do? How do I pursue this? Success, people have a fear of success as well. But everything usually centers around fear when people are talking about a block. So what we need to do is we need to be bold. We need to be brave. And bravery, it isn't a lack of fear. It's being afraid and then taking on that challenge anyway. So when we find ourselves in a situation where we're in the middle of a fog, we're approaching a fog, we just need to be calm, and we need to understand that this isn't a block, this isn't a barrier. That although you can't see through the other side, if your intention is clear, you can navigate that slowly, step by step, to reach that goal. And that goal will become more clear until ultimately you reach your destination. All right, so here you go. Here is our robot blueprint drawing. Hope you enjoyed that. These are always fun to do, and I hope you got something out of this topic. If you're somebody who struggles with being productive, if you find yourself in what many people call art block, I hope I've changed your perspective on that. So let's not talk about art block anymore. Let's not label something as art block. Let's look at it as that art fog that we can kind of get through, because there is something on the other side. It may not be clear, but you can get through it, and it's just not something that's gonna stop you like that. Art block, such a horrible term. So let's stop using that. Let's talk about art fog and how we can get beyond that. So what do you think? Are these issues that you faced before? Have you got through them? Do you have another way to look at something that might be even more helpful than what I put out there? I'm always looking for new ideas, new perspective on things. So let me know in the comment section, and I will see you next week for some more art advice, and that is all. Hey, thanks for watching. If you like what you saw and you want to see more, hit that subscribe button. Also, you can follow me at Serkworks on social media, and now you can support the work that I do on Patreon. If you like making comics, then go to Serkworks.com and pick up the Comic Maker Starter Kit. It's packed full of fonts, brushes, templates, and more. And best of all, it's totally free.